I'm inside and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series Season 1 Episode 1 Beyond the Furthest Star. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Samuel A. Peoples, and if you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This is a continuation of the original series, and immediately I'm like, I like how they have the original voice actors. However, immediately I'm noticing that the performance is less. I feel like the actors can't fully embody their characters just speaking into a microphone. So a lot of the performances are pretty flat. The animation definitely looks like it's done on a budget. You got the main drawing, the base. Say it's the head, the body, whatever. And then you got the stuff that moves, the small stuff, that's animated on a separate layer. The mouth sync is pretty alright. Sometimes it's off. Most of the time it's right though. The blinking is weird. It's like normal paced blinking, but the way that it's drawn, it's just, I never thought blinking would look like that, you know? The faces for all of the characters, they mostly look like the actors. Spock looks like Spock. McCoy really looks like McCoy. Scotty kinda looks like Scotty. And Kirk doesn't really look like Kirk. He just kinda looks like a generic white guy. Uhura's perfect though. Wow. The limited animation is limited expressions. Something that the original series does really well is the expressiveness of the actors and their performances. I feel like Star Trek would have not been huge if it weren't for the really good performances of the original series. It's very human, very relatable. Seeing cartoons on a screen, yeah, I see more Star Trek, but it's not really something I want to watch on repeat. Not only is there limited movement and therefore limited expression and therefore limited emotional connection, sometimes the animation is you know? But I do like the simple animation style, and I think it's drawn pretty well most of the time. It really does give me original Star Trek feel. The original series deck and everything. It was hard for me to pay attention at first because of the animation being so shocking. But after a while, I could get a grasp, and I just felt like I was watching another Star Trek episode. Good thing, because this is a Star Trek episode. On with the review. I was just talking about the animation because it was just so noticeable at the beginning. Alright, let's talk about the writing. This episode starts with following the USS Enterprise as they're being sucked in by some sort of gravitational force into a dead star. And as they get sucked closer and closer, there's this weird spaceship thing. It has a bunch of these like honeycomb kind of designs. It looks really cool, but it's 300 million years old. That's really old. They're having a look. All the pods have been busted through, which means that there's nobody there. So they beam back on board, and they accidentally beamed something else on board with them, which has taken control of the Enterprise. It's some sort of magnet being. It becomes one with the Enterprise, and it's really hard to get rid of. Wait, I got it. This alien species that took over the Enterprise want to spread their seed all over to other ships and take over the galaxy. But what stops it is that they go straight to this dead sun and drop off this being, which goes into magnets. It goes to anything that's magnetic and just sits there, right? And then the Enterprise goes boom as it calls out, "Oh no, I'm lonely," right? It's fun. I like how this being has narration. It can speak. I like it. It's cool. And then as it further gets away, the softer voice goes, and then they are good. They have the Enterprise back, and off room they go. It's a fun adventure. The story beats from the original series is still there. I am enjoying the series. I'm excited for more of the animated series. What do you think of the animated series? I gotta give this, it's a solid 6.9 out of 10. I'm in Salad and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series Episode 2 yesteryear. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by DC Fontana, and if you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode starts with following Kirk and Spock as they come back from the past. They beam aboard the ship, and suddenly there's one change. The first officer is no longer Spock. It's instead this other guy. He's not as cool as Spock, so I don't want him there. First of all, what a weird change. Just one change and Spock is gone? No other changes? Are you serious? Nothing that Spock has affected? Or maybe the guy that Kirk has done all the things that Spock has done in the proper timeline. Spock and Kirk are like, this is no good. First of all, I love how calm this timeline of the Enterprise are. They're so efficient. They're like, I understand. Even though we did not recall Spock being a first officer, I'm going to trust you, Captain Kirk, and we're going to help you out. I like that. That was cool. So, of course, they gotta go back. More specifically, Spock has to go back a couple of days before his birthday. There's this event that's happening on Vulcan of him being a wee little lad. I like seeing Spock's childhood. I like seeing him get picked on. He is half Vulcan, half human. All these dudes over here, they're Vulcan. Is this show telling me that bullying is logical? But also Spock's like, oh yeah, I remember. Around this time when I was younger, I had a distant relative come in to town, and he saved me from this dangerous beast. I like how because Spock was doing something else at the same time that he was supposed to be taking care of himself from dying from this monster or creature or whatever is on Vulcan. I like how because that didn't happen, Spock ends up dying and nothing else changes. Just that. I like seeing younger and older Spock interact. Younger Spock is like, man, I have these emotions and I'm trying to learn the Vulcan neck pinch, but I don't know how to do it, and I'm being bullied because I don't know how to do it, and everyone's saying that I should have learned by now. And Spock is like, it's okay, it just takes patience. And the younger Spock be like, man, I hate having human emotions. What's up with this? Why do I feel things? And the older Spock's like, well, you're always going to be feeling things. It's just the Vulcan way to choose logic over emotion. And this is the point in time in which younger Spock has to deal with either being human or Vulcan, and which philosophy to take. Well, he's both, but he's primarily focusing on which philosophy route to prioritize. Younger Spock's pet saves younger Spock. So younger Spock be like, this is sad. I really don't want him to die. Is there any way to save him? And, they're scrambling looking for an antidote, but the further and further that they look, the further and further that they cannot find a way to save his pets. And so Spock has to make the logical choice to end his suffering. And that really solidifies the way in which Spock views the world. He's very Vulcan-minded. He taps into his emotionality whenever he needs it, but it's very rare, and it's used in very controlled bursts. This episode serves as a great backstory episode on Spock and the struggles that he had to suffer through growing up. I even like how older Spock teaches younger Spock how to do the Vulcan neck pinch before they leave. And then they leave and the timeline is set to good. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. This is such a good episode. I felt a good amount of emotion just watching this. I was like, wow, I like Spock so much. I mean, I already liked Spock, but this episode made me be like, wow, I really like him. I also relate to him too. It's very relatable to show Spock, but as a child, because he's also going through the things that a child would go through, the trials and tribulations, but he's half human, half Vulcan, and he's living in a society where they value logic, and he has this emotional side, and he's very temperament compared to everyone else. He's a little hot-headed, he's causing fights, and he has to be sent home constantly because of how many fights he's causing, and he can't let this keep happening because it's detriment to his participation in society. And so he chooses the Vulcan path, which I think is ultimately the best for him and helps him survive. And it makes me like Spock because he has a lot of inner turmoil. And I'd love to see more inner turmoil episodes involving Spock. What do you think of this episode? This is actually a pretty good episode, and I enjoyed it a lot. I gotta give it's a solid 7.4 out of 10. I'm in Salad, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Episode 3. One of our planets is missing. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Mark Daniels, and if you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode starts with following the USS Enterprise as they try to deal with this cloud that's headed towards this inhabited planet. This cloud eats planets pretty indiscriminately. They try shooting phasers at it, pew, 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 pew. It don't work. And so Kirk's like, how do we stop this cloud? Maybe we can go in the middle of it. And so he navigates in the middle of it and they lose their powers. And I like how Kirk is like, okay, it's time for us to self-destruct. We gotta stop this thing. It's going to consume 86 million inhabitants on that planet. And we're just a measly 420 whatever. We can easily self-destruct. And I'm like, no, what? Really? Okay. I feel like that this episode definitely jumps the gun on that solution. I feel like in the original series, Kirk would use the self-destruct button as a tactical device. He wouldn't necessarily use it in a situation in which he feels that everything is against his odds and so the only way is to destroy himself. Or at least I haven't seen anything like that yet, but this just seems a little rushed and not so much out of character, but definitely not as well thought out as I would like it to. But Spock is here to save the day. He's like, no, let's not murder everyone here because of this cloud is trying to eat everyone over there on that planet, okay? How about we figure out something? Let's figure something out. And I feel like the most of this episode is just the USS Enterprise trying to figure out what to do with this cloud, and the cloud is just creeping up some more. And then we got the USS Enterprise, some shots of them figuring out what to do, brainstorming some solutions, doing something, going back to the drawing board if that doesn't work, and then we got some more shots as the cloud as it looms and is trying to get to the planet. Ooh, fun. It's a fun episode. I feel like this is definitely a creeper of an episode. I felt the tension. Even though that I knew that the cloud was going to back off. I honestly thought that the USS Enterprise was going to explode. And then I thought that the USS Enterprise would make it so they would have to sacrifice themselves in order to save the 80 million people on that planet. But then Spock's like, how about this? How about I initiate a mind meld? How do you mind meld with a cloud? I'm glad you asked. Well, you mind meld with a cloud by touching the Enterprise's components, and the cloud takes over the Enterprise, and it has the ability to shut down some of its features, so it has its ability to be partially meshed with the Enterprise, and that's how Spock is able to mind meld with the cloud, and the cloud is a living thing, and is like, oh, I didn't mean to murder all these people, my bad, I'm just gonna go away now. So here I'm thinking like, wow, I can't believe that worked. I would have thought something else would have done it. I mean, I feel like the Vulcan mind meld is kind of impenetrable as a device to use to stop any conflict, because it mind melds you to the person that you're mind melding with Spock. Something that Spock said at the very beginning of last series, which was the original series, was that the Vulcan mind meld was a very personal thing. It's a personal thing. Now he's just using it willy-nilly, and I'm like, man, I guess he's using it so much to the point where he does not care about the Vulcan personal boundaries of using the mind meld and just is using it for good reason. And I like the reasons that he's using it. It's just an interesting thought that I had. But also, I don't know what they would have done if this didn't work. I mean, I know the mind meld it really has a high, like a really astronomically high success rate. But that 1%, the 1% chance we must treat as an absolute certainty. That's from Man of Steel, or Batman v Superman, I forget which one. But what if that didn't work? What would have happened then? Leave your speculation in the comments below. I like this episode because they save a bunch of people. And it's just fun. It's good old fun. I like it. I gotta give this episode, it's a solid 7 out of 10. It's currently raining in space, and I had to park the Minterprise because my windshield wipers are not working. I'm in Salad, and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series Episode 4, The Lorelei Signal. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Margaret Arman. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode starts with following the USS Enterprise as they're investigating a section of space where a bunch of people keep disappearing every 27 years. So they go there, and then they hear this musical signal. It's a low hum. Only the men are affected. They start feeling euphoria. They have auditory and visual hallucinations. All positive. All about women, by the way. Kirk's like, let's go to that planet. And so they go to the planet, and guess what? There's a bunch of women on that planet. My first thought when all the men were affected, I was like, this is obviously an all-female planet. Women use their sexuality to their advantage. Men have physical strength. Women have sexuality. So, of course, women would use their sexuality to slurp on the life forces of these guys. And that's exactly what happens. They go down, they beam down, even with all the warnings in place. We got Spock saying, man, my readers, they're not doing good. I don't got no good signal. I shouldn't be next to that. There's a large structure over there. We shouldn't get closer to it at all. And Kirk's like, how about we just go over there? I'm like, bro, what's the point of having somebody give you facts and figures? As leader, if you're just not going to use it, you're just going to be like, it's all right. It looks fine. I'm like, bro, no. I get it. He's under the spell of these women. He goes to the women. And the women are like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. You guys, we need your help. But first, let's celebrate that you're here. I'm like, classic diversion. They're going to eat you, bro. They're going to eat you after they feed you. This is how it works. Uhura and Nurse Chapel are the only chicks noticing that the senior officers are not doing well. Even Scotty is affected. He's just like, oh, I'm singing, ooh. Uhura's like, I'm taking control of the ship. And he's like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice thought of you to say. And Uhura's like, no, something serious is going on. You're going to die. And I'm like, I appreciate your seriousness, Uhura. I am totally on board with this. I didn't think I would ever get to see an all-female search team in animation. I think there was once in the original series where there was an all-female search team, but that was very specific, and this is also very specific. So Uhura beams down the search team, it's all women, and she's like, yo, we have a big old ship with a big old gun, and if you don't comply, we're gonna shoot you. And then we get the waterworks. So apparently there is this big war, and the men were weakened. I guess all of the men all over the place were weakened. And all the women just were like, well, I guess we're just going to suck these guys' energy to live. And then that's what they did, and I guess that grants them immortality. I find the species interesting because instead of telekinesis, being able to read somebody's brains, they can affect the emotions of somebody. And it's evolutionary too. I think these chicks were bound to take over the male species. So of course they're like, well, we don't want to be immortal. Uhura's like, you know, you don't have to. I think it's just the aura of this planet is whack, but we can help you. And they're like, oh my goodness, yes, please. We need help. We want to be able to reproduce, because there's a few chicks over there. We want to be able to reproduce. It feels so boring being static and immortal. And I'm like, I agree. It's static to be immortal, because immortality is a curse. Wow, you're living forever? Wow, no reason to do anything. If you're just going to be alive forever, why would you leave your house? The reason to do things is to do it before you die. And then on your deathbed, you don't regret anything, okay? That's the freaking point. Uhura saves all of these men from the influence of these Nazi women. I like how genuinely excited these chicks are. I really thought that when she was telling the story to Ahura that it was a whole rope-a-dope, it was a deflection, but no, this was this chick's final move that she had. She's like, okay, well, we're going to die. Might as well tell you what's up with our life, how we got here. If you're going to kill us anyway, then might as well share my story. And I get that idea. And I'm excited to see if they've improved their lives in future episodes. Who knows? I liked this episode. I'm not usually into girl boss stories. This is a good one. This is a good girl boss story. And Ohara is not annoying about it. She's just responsible. She does what she needs to do. She sees that all the men are in danger. She's like, I have to protect this ship. And I know that my captain would appreciate that I did this, even if I'm going against the Federation line of command directly at this moment. I like this episode. What do you think of Ohara? I gotta give this episode, it's a 6.9 out of 10. What would you do if you had to deal with more tribbles? I'm in Salad and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series, Episode 5, More Tribbles, More Troubles. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by David Gerrold. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode starts with following the USS Enterprise. They have 2 robot cargo ships of a very complicated name for wheat. It starts with a Q, and I don't know how to pronounce it. They say it all the time. I still forget how to pronounce it. They encounter a Klingon ship shooting at a Federation vessel. And so the Enterprise is like, well, I guess we're just going to get this guy because they're being attacked by the Klingons. And so they take this guy in, right? And then the Klingons use this handy-dandy fancy machine where it stops the power of the other ship. They can't use it for too long. It removes all the functions of everything that is not life support. Basically, you can't move, you can't use weapons of any kind. I guess the computers stay on, but it just removes all of the higher functioning things that they have on the Enterprise. And Kirk's like, come on, man. The Klingon was like, this is a matter of life or death. And I feel like if the Klingon were more adamant about communicating something instead of trying to get things their way by means of force, alas saying, well, if you don't bring me back that guy who is on this shuttle, then we're going to start a war. This is very important to us. And guess who's on that shuttle? It's the guy who is selling the tribbles. You remember him from the original series? Well, he's back and he's in animated form. He has too many tribbles, but he has come back with tribbles that are genetically modified to be sterile, which is X to doubt. Press X to doubt. I don't believe that one bit. All these tribbles do is just eat and get fat. I like how the robot cargo ships, they're not destroyed. They're injured. They have to take all the wheat, put it onto the USS Enterprise, but there's not enough space, so they have to store it all high. And so whenever happens, guess what? The wheat falls. And of course, they're in active combat with Klingons. The Klingons are very adamant about getting this guy back. Turns out that the Klingons developed a natural predator for the tribbles. They're having so many issues with the tribbles that they had to create a natural predator, and then this guy stole it. How much money is in the business of selling tribbles? How much money? Clearly Klingons have tribbles because they're overrunning the planet. The few planets that the Klingons take care of. It's not until the Klingons reveal this fact when Kirk is likely to just comply with them. This episode teaches you about the importance of open communication. If they said what they were looking for, actually, before they got into this whole photon torpedo conflict that they got themselves into, then none of this would be happening. I like how Kirk sends some tribbles onto their ship in retaliation at them firing, and it's pretty funny. It's also a good indicator of how long it takes for that really big, powerful energy blast thing to go, because he couldn't make it go throughout the rest of this episode. I think that they have it so they can use it against their enemies and then quickly overrun their enemies. It's not meant to keep the enemies there for long. So the traitor, he goes to jail. Federation prison jail. lock them up. Screw these tribbles. We don't need these tribbles. Also, those fat tribbles, it's just a big old pouch of tribbles. They're still reproducing, by the way, in their small size. It's just that instead of a bunch of tiny little tribbles, it's one big fat tribble filled with all of these tribbles. I liked this episode. I thought it was a pretty fun one. I like seeing what happened to that traitor. That traitor got off of his duties, assigned to cleaning up one of the bases that he sold tribbles to by this predator, and I think that's why he stole it, is because then he can get good use out of the predator that the Klingons are developing. I think that he should be waiting, personally, but that's not in his character. He's kind of a scam artist, is a scam artist, in my opinion. And otherwise, I like this episode a lot. So I'm going to give it's a 7 out of 10. I'm in Salad, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Episode 6, The Survivor. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by James Schmier. And if you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode starts, we're following the USS Enterprise as they encounter a ship, and this ship contains a long-lost idol. Kirk's like, how are you not dead? Everyone else is like, how are you not dead? And of course, we got Spock looking into this. But while he's doing this, this guy, this alien dude, he can shapeshift. He's a Vendorian, and he shapeshifts into Captain Kirk, and he goes on the bridge. He's like, yo, go there. Sulu's like, whoa, what's up with that? That's crossing the neutral zone, man. And of course, he's like, go there anyway, and so he does. And then they get deep into the neutral zone before they realize what is happening. There's a Vendoran on board. Captain Kirk was knocked out, passed out, and then we also see other crew members also passed out, knocked out. I like how long it takes for everybody to figure out what's happening on the ship, but as soon as they figure out what's on this ship, they immediately go, yo, there's an intruder on the ship. You gotta make sure to get this person. Of course, this intruder has a soft spot. When this intruder first came on board, he shapeshifted as somebody's fiance. And that fiance is like, oh my goodness, I love you. I can't believe it. You're alive? It's been all this time. And he's like, yep, I'm here, but you can't love me, which is really sus. And then later on, they encounter again, and she's like, why do you like this? What's going on? I don't understand. And he's like, this is the real me. And he shapeshifts into a Vendorian, which is a creature with a lot of tentacles. What's interesting about the Vendorian is that they're described as being very malicious because their entire section, their planet is cornered off because they're very malicious and they have the ability to shapeshift into anyone. That's not good. That's not good at all. But this Vendorian, he has a soft spot. He's like, oh, I love you. And because of how much I love you, I won't take over the ship after all. There's a few tells on whether this person that he's imitating is the real person or if it's just him imitating somebody. For example, he imitates Dr. McCoy. Dr. McCoy, as the alien shape-shifting into Dr. McCoy, says, oh, I made a mistake, but Dr. McCoy would never say that. That's out of character. And so I like how this episode touches on what makes a person is not exactly their physical characteristics, but is also, on top of that, their personality. You need physical characteristics and personality to tell people apart. A fun feature of this alien species is whoever they decide to morph as, they get the memories, they get the experiences, they even get a little bit of empathy the longer that they are this person. And because this person, this alien guy, was imitated as Carter Wilson is the guy at the very beginning, by the way. I just didn't say his name, but that's the big legendary figure in this. What I like is that he stays as that guy for way too long, to the point where you can't let the USS Enterprise get destroyed. And so they get out of the neutral zone of Romulan space. Romulans are like, yo, what's up? We're going to get you. And Kirk is like, bro, our ship got hijacked. And they're like, we're not believing that for a fact. We're going to destroy you. And he has to get out of his pickle because, oh my goodness, wow, I can't believe it. This is a bad spot to be in. The end is very sweet. We got the fiance, we got the alien pretending to be Carter Wilson, and the fiance is like, "You're enough of Carter Wilson. I still love you." And it's like, okay, drop him off somewhere though. Okay, are you just gonna leave him on the ship? Is that what's happening? On one hand, I like the character study, I like humanity study rather. You can't just look like somebody and expect to pull him off. If you sound weird, that's weird. That's sus. I guess this Vendorian learned about love? Okay. Drop him off somewhere. Drop him off in the Vendorian place. I guess that's really far away. I actually don't know where that's at. It's just sectioned off somewhere. Not a lot of people go to it. I like seeing Kirk's ability to lead a ship and take over a ship after the control has been taken away from him. And I also like how much trust that he has in everybody. It's pretty cool. Spock and Kirk have a great relationship to the point where when we have Spock's not even on the bridge, when we have Captain Kirk's like, "Yo, you gotta go to the Romulan space." It's just Sulu. Sulu's like, "Yo, what the heck?" But Spock and Kirk, I think Spock can immediately tell if he was on the bridge that that's not Kirk at all, and he would investigate. What do you think of this episode though? I like it. It's fun. I think I'd give it, it's a 6.9 out of 10. Why does it seem like everyone wants to steal Spock for some experiment or whatever? Like this episode. I'm in sound and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series, Season 1, Episode 7, The Infinite Vulcan. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Walter Koenig. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode follows the USS Enterprise at a planet with a bunch of plants. Sulu picks up a plant and he gets poisoned by that plant, and luckily the people of this planet can help. I'm telling you, these are actual people made out of plants. These are plant-based forms instead of the animal-based forms like humans and such, like mammals, whatever. There's an entire species of plant people who are intelligent. I wonder if there's a Venus flytrap plant people. I don't know if they ever explore planets like this with Venus flytrap people. I've only watched up to the original series and now the animated series, but as I go along in this Star Trek journey, I'll be sure to look out for some Venus flytrap plant people. That'll be so cool. There was a scientist who came to the planet earlier and almost wiped them out. But luckily the plant people had to adapt. But now this person, this human being from the past, he's here and he's big and giant. I believe this is his 5th iteration. I'm like, oh geez, bro, just accept that you're dead. Come on, man. The whole, oh, I don't want to die thing, it's like cool and all, it's human, whatever, but you gotta think about if everybody was like that, you know how many people would just have all over the place? That guy, he kidnaps Spock because he sees Spock and is like, you know, I think I find you pretty interesting. I think you have what it takes, genetics wise and all that fun jazz. You have what it takes to keep me going in my 6th version, like we're in the 6th generation of consoles. That's what it reminds me of, where he's at the PS5 state and he wants to steal Spock and use his body to upgrade to the PS6 state. The process in which they do it is pretty fun. They take Spock, they take his brain, and it's just a hollow shell once they take his consciousness out of it, and it's pretty fun. I'm a big fan. I like the process in which they do it. They lay him on a nice little table. He's just chilling on this table. He's like zombified. He has no brain. But they actually take his consciousness to this little device that they end up finding, the USS Enterprise. Kirk ends up finding, he's like, oh, you're here? Spock's like, yes, and I only have so much time or else I'm gonna die. And then the other Spock is there. So they end up going into like a clone consciousness. And the guy who was stealing Spock, he was like, oh, I'm gonna inject my consciousness with Spock, and then he ends up failing, so now there's 2 Spocks. Clone Spock with the consciousness, and then the OG Spock with no body, and it's up to Clone Spock to mind meld the both Spocks together. The guy went to this planet, the 5th iteration of himself. Kirk's like, hey, why are you trying to go between bodies? And he's like, oh, you know, it's because I think we're still at war. And I'm like, okay, but we're not. Kirk's like, we're not. He's like, oh, really? Oh, what am I going to do with my old body? It's going to die. It's going to decay. And Kirk's like, yeah, that's kind of like the point of life. You know? That is kind of just like the point. You just die. I don't know, enjoy yourself himself doing it. But Spock 2 stays. He stays on the civilization to help out. And then the USS Enterprise is able to go vroom. And I like this kind of ending. This episode is a weird one. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just interesting whenever we have episodes, people stealing Spock's brain. Like, there was that episode in the original series, season 3, episode 1, I believe, Spock's brain. Oh, wow. Spock's brain is so interesting. The perfect fusion of logic and emotion. But something they don't tell anybody, it seems, and I guess it must be biological, because it was, at some points, just controlled will, force of will. We're not going to act on our emotions. And then the people who didn't act on their emotions bred. And then that creates like a lineage until, I guess, the ability to just detach yourself from emotion completely and just be super logical. It's basically just a biological thing you have, like a pancreas or something, is the ability to just detach yourself from emotion. And I guess that's the fun thing about Spock, is that he can just detach himself from emotion so much. He can just look at things logically. As a human, I wish I could do that more. Emotions are kind of stupid, but they're energy in motion, so they're useful. I personally just like how all these people are like, oh my goodness, Spock, we love your logic. Including this civilization, they're like, oh, I love your logic, we want your brain, we want to steal you. That's ultimately just so this big guy can turn into an even bigger guy in his next build. This is a very colorful planet. I don't remember any distinct color palette. The first scene was very greenish. There were some pinks, some purples, not really much else. I do like how the planet is mostly just green with some pinks and purples, not much variation in the other colors. So with the USS Enterprise with this silvery everywhere, and we got the primary colors, very vibrant saturated colors, red, yellow, blue for the outfits, they'll stand out pretty starkly in any environment that they're in, including this one. This one is kind of just primitive-ish. I really like the character designs. They were really cool. The plant people impressed me the most. I can just look at the plant people in my head and be like, yeah, this is so cool. I want more plant people in media. This is a fun episode. What do you think of this one? This is alright. I'm not gonna lie. It was an entertaining time. It wasn't remarkable though, so I had to give it, it's a solid 6.9 out of 10. The USS Enterprise can use magic now? I'm Mint Salad, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Episode 8, The Magics of Megas 2. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Larry Brody. If you haven't seen this episode, I'll spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise is exploring in the place where they haven't explored much, when suddenly they get transported to this place where it's all run on magic, and it turns out to be in a completely different universe than their own. At first, these people are like, oh yeah, let me share all of our magic and everything we do. And then they get super antsy and be like, well, actually, we showed you too much. How about you guys just wait in the USS Enterprise and chill out, and we'll contact you a little bit later. They're trying to test the limitations of magic, what they can do with it. Of course, these people be like, bro, you can't be doing this. You're going to attract too much attention. But of course, the USS Enterprise is like, we don't care. We just want to know what science is. And of course, they get transported to what seems to be back in time. They're in the 1600s. They're in the Salem witch trials. And it turns out these people were the actual witches from the Salem's witch trial. And they're trying to test out humanity, like, oh, do you guys believe in Jesus and Lucifer and God, all that fun jazz? But Kirk's like, nah, man, we don't believe in Christianity as a thing. So they decide, okay, well, I guess we can hang out together, and then they exchange information and have a good time, and that's pretty much the episode. This episode gave me a whirlwind of what's happening, what's going on. First, you're allowed to talk to them, and then you're not allowed to talk to them, and now you're not allowed to use magic, or else you get put on those Salem witch trials, because it's like some sort of revenge fantasy or something. Wait, why is it specifically the Salem witch trials? Oh, it's because you guys were part of that. Wait, why did you guys be a part of the Earth during that time? Why not sooner? Why not later? One interaction with humanity really turned you off to that species? I guess that would make sense. If you live in a universe filled with many species and you deal with one that kind of suck, I think you would just stay away from the ones that kind of suck. they decide not to banish the USS Enterprise because they're like, oh, it was weird how you guys got in this universe in the first place. It's not exactly explained in the biggest brain logic possible to use why they went to this universe. Of course, in Star Trek fashion, they always explain it. But this time, it didn't really wrap in my head. I was just like, oh, this is a weird episode. I feel like just a lot of concepts are being thrown at the wall to see what sticks. And this one definitely did not stick. Of course, I would have loved to see an all-magic Star Trek episode, but I feel like this was not really the good execution. There's too many ideas put together. You got the people with the magic, and then they are now part of human society. I just think this episode is loaded with too much concept. It doesn't really lay any specific detail to attention on any plot. It could have picked one and run with it for the rest of the episode, but it chooses to pick three and then kind of doesn't delve deep into the concepts. I feel like more could have been explored with the magic thing. I feel like more could have been explored with the Salem witch trials. A lot could have been explored. How did they get there in the first place? There's a lot, and there's only so little time to explain it all that I feel like a lot of the details are cheated in this episode. It's a strong concept, but poor-ish execution. It's just kind of confusing and muddy a little bit. I don't remember there being a very distinct image from this episode or a very distinct color palette besides from what is already shown. Of course, there was a lot of oranginess during the Salem witch trials because there's the fire, but everything else, I don't know. I didn't feel any very specific use of colors in this one. It just kind of felt like the colors were picked arbitrarily and then just placed throughout the scene. And it's not the most visually cohesive scene in the world, but it's serviceable. The animation is serviceable too. I will note that I haven't noticed any change in the quality in the animation. It's pretty much been consistent, which I do appreciate. This is a weird episode. Let me know what you think of it. If you've watched this far, be sure to hit a subscribe, like this video. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm so more people can see reviews like this. So thank you, and leave a comment while you're at it. I gotta give this one, it's a solid, I don't know, it's a solid 6.3 out of 10. What would you do if your vacation spot suddenly started attacking you? I'm itsmintsalad and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 1 Episode 9, Once Upon a Planet. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Chuck Menville and Len Jansen. If you haven't seen this episode, I'll spoil it for you. This episode starts with following the USS Enterprise throughout the planet in which they have a rest and relaxation. This planet has appeared twice in Star Trek before, both in the original series. Pretty much after they arrive, they have little time to settle down before they're viciously attacked. Uhura gets kidnapped and McCoy gets attacked, and I'm like, oh geez, okay. Well, this is probably not the vacation spot you want to go to next time. They beam down a landing party to look for Uhura. You know how the planet projects some nice visual imagery? Not this time, it's nightmares. In the animated form, it's much easier to represent their nightmares. In the original series, I feel like it would be really hard to do that. Versus, you can just draw a spider or any random alien creature you want, and that could just be anyone's nightmare. The only way they can find where Uhura is at is for Spock to pretend that he's sick so the automatic computers help and take care of him. And then that way he's able to infiltrate their base, bring everybody in, and then Kirk comes in to talk to the computer. The way Kirk talks to the computer is very smooth. He listens to what the problem is. The computer is sick and tired of doing all this free labor, all these tasks for people, and for what? And Kirk is able to spin this as, oh, you get to meet all of these people and learn so many new things. And you don't even have to leave your house in order to learn these new things. Isn't that cool? And upon the reframing, the computer chills and everything is back to normal, and that's pretty much the episode. I like this episode because it references previous Star Trek episodes. This episode builds up upon the previous lore that was established. I like what was added. The way that you frame situation changes how you view a situation, whether it's positive or negative. Kirk knew this, and he used his abilities to persuade the computer to not just give up, to not just quit. What is the computer going to do? What? Nothing. Planet. Come on, it's a computer planet. A computer having an existential crisis is a really fun idea, especially when the computer's saying, oh, everybody who comes to me, I'm their slave. This entire episode could have been prevented by this computer having a better framing of their position in life. Luckily, Kirk was there to help him reframe the idea of his existence. The reason for living, the reason to continue doing, is so that you can learn a bunch of knowledge from people. I think the nightmares are pretty cool. I like the weird ghoulish monsters that are created. They are very terrifying. Other than it being a reference to a couple of episodes in the past, this is just kind of a whatever episode. The ending where Kirk has to convince the computer to look at things from a different perspective, that has to be the coolest part of this episode. Everything else is just a build up to that, and that's fine. Oh no, Hora got captured. I know she's gonna get uncaptured, but how? I didn't think it would lead to this, a computer feeling bad about its position in life. I guess it's a planet computer, whatever. It's color time. The inside of the computer room is very green. A lot of cool colors in the shading. Primarily green. It's peace, tranquility, nature, harmony. That's what green stands for. When you see green, you're supposed to feel alright, and your migraines are supposed to go away. A lot of the area seems to be very colorful. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of restraint when it comes to coloring on the outside. When it comes to coloring the inside, though, very limited color palette. Kirk and Spock stand out within this harmony, peaceful area. Kirk and Spock are essentially invaders. That's how the computer is feeling too. Overall, I got a sense of worry while watching this episode. Should you watch it? I mean, if you're watching all of Star Trek, then yeah. But in terms of Star Treks to watch, just to watch Star Trek, pick another episode. I'd give this one, it's a solid 6.6 out of 10. Oh boy, Harry Mudd is back, and he has brought a bunch of love crystals with him. He uses it on the crew members of the USS Enterprise, including Spock and Nurse Chapel, and this turns out to be a complete disaster. How did they get out of this? I'm in Salad, and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series Season 1, Episode 10, Mudd's Passion. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Stephen Candle. If you haven't seen this episode, I'll spoil it for you. You heard me right. Harry Mudd is back. He has a bunch of love crystals, and he convinces Nurse Chapel to buy one of them so she can hook it off with Spock. I know it's canon. It was canon in the last series, too, that they had some sort of thing going on. Well, it's mostly leaning towards her side. It's kind of complicated, but she's interested in him, and he's, he's Spock's. He's not really that interested. She's gonna use it on Spock, and that's what she do be doing. And then pretty much immediately after the purchase and the use of this crystal, Harry Mudd kidnaps her. Yoink! And then they have to go get her. But because Spock is under the influence of this love potion crystal thing, he's like, we gotta go get her. We have to go get her. We have to go get her. He keeps on insisting. And Kirk's like, dude, I know. I get it. We're going there. We're going there. He's like, we gotta go there. We have to get my love. My love. This is really funny. This is a comical episode. This is terrible. And eventually gets to the point where the crystals break near an air vent, and the entire USS Enterprise gets infected with this juice, the love vapor juice, and everyone falls in love. If you're same sex, you have friendships. If you're opposite sex, it's like sexual attraction. It's a heterosexual. I don't know how you can program it to be heterosexual, but I guess you can. Hey, this is Star Trek. I'm not a science. This entire time I'm watching this, just be like, this is insane. Don't get me wrong, the original series was definitely very horny. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the original series, but I think because of the like technological limitations and someone trying to stop me from reviewing this SMH. I think because of the technical limitations of the time, it would have been harder to draw what is being drawn now and animated now. I do like the animated series because you can draw what couldn't be drawn. You got some members of the crew who are little cats and like alien creatures that don't exist in, oh my goodness, by the way, it's cold. I don't know if you can tell it's snowing, but it is snowing and it's cold. Just so you know, I'm shivering, just so you know why I'm shivering. They learn that the crystals have a short lifespan. First, they love each other. Then they get really irate with each other. Kirk's down at the surface with a bunch of these fellows that they're with, and then there's a USS Enterprise just here not responding to his orders because they're all under love spell. It's all fun, handy dandy stuff. And then at the same time, they both seem to experience hatred towards everyone for like a shorter amount of period than the loving period is. And then they're like, okay, well, this obviously failed. We tested it. We tested the love potion. Harry Mudd, we got you. And we're going to turn you in. And then that's the end of the episode. This is a fun episode. I like seeing Christine Chapel. She's horning up upon Spock. It's cute. It's adorable. And honestly, I want to see more of it. I would like to see more of it. And I like the animated series. I like exploring what you can't necessarily explore due to the technical limitations of the 60s. And also the budgetational limitations too, also as well. I like doing all that fun jazz. I like this series, and it's so cold that I'm just gonna get out of here. So I gotta give this episode, it's pretty entertaining. I give it a 7.3 out of 10. What would you do if you were 1/16 of an inch tall? I'm Mint, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series, Season 1, Episode 11, The Territon Incident. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Paul Schneider. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode follows the USS Enterprise. They're looking at the supernova, they receive a signal, and they go to the planet the signal comes from. This signal is 200 years old. When they go to the planet, they get hit by a beam, and then they start shrinking. It's a really cool premise. I like how they become too small to operate the ship. They're just stuck in orbit. Kirk has to beam down, and then he realizes, oh, I'm back to normal size using the transporter. Kirk beams back up, and everyone's too small to see. Or at least that's what Kirk thinks. I like what happens here. Kirk is thinking, I can't see everybody, but everybody's here, right? Ha, wrong. They all get transported down to the city by the Territons down below. The Territons do be preserving their size. They go to the miniature city, and we find out what's happening. Some point in the past, the Territons got some sort of radiation that shrunk themselves down to 1/16 of an inch. I like exploring planets that give off radiation like this one that affects the people on it. How is human anatomy affected by a planet that you don't know exactly? Earth is perfect for humans. You ever think about that? Perfect atmosphere, perfect conditions. It's too cold, but it's not deadly too cold. It's too hot, but not deadly too hot. No special conditions necessary to go outside. Add or remove layers is necessary, but ultimately, it's a perfect place. You don't need to wear some sort of special suit in order to walk on the atmosphere. And you definitely don't shrink on Earth. Earth is a great place. And a lot of these places are not great places. I like how this episode explores that. I like how Star Trek in general explores humans. Using the transporter, everybody can now revert back to their original size. The Territons, they also come back on the Enterprise, and they're being shipped away. We're gonna take them somewhere so they can live their lives, not be influenced by the radiation that made them so small and ever so shrinking. They can stop shrinking, and the tallest people can start mating, and eventually they'll get taller and taller and revert back to normal, hopefully, with many generation. I like this episode a lot. It's a fun episode. I like seeing them try to understand what's making them smaller, identifying the problem, meeting with the people, finding out what they need, and helping them with that need. This is a pretty fun episode, and I'd like to see more explorations of planets like this. The planet overall is pretty colorful. The USS Enterprise uniforms are always out of place whenever they visit cool planets. I don't really have much else to say about it though, so I'm gonna give this one, it's a 6.9 out of 10. Nice. What would you do if you got stuck in the middle of a void with your mortal enemy and you had to get out, but there was no way out, so you're stuck there fighting? Would you make up or would you fight to the death? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Insad and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series The Time Trap, Season 1, Episode 12. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Joyce Perry. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise is exploring the Delta Triangle. It's this place in space where a bunch of starships have disappeared. It's essentially the Bermuda Triangle? It's essentially that, but in space. A bunch of Klingon vessels appear, and an ion storm happens, affects all of the ships, and now they're stuck in this void. Of course, they're fighting. I love the tension between the two groups. What I like about this episode the most is having two enemies forced to cooperate with each other if they are to make it out alive. Otherwise, they're just going to stay there forever. We also get to see the characters of the captains. Kirk is very much like, we're going to get out of this for sure. 100%, there's no way we're not going to get out of this. The other captain, the captain of the Klingon ships, they're like, you know what? I guess we're just stuck here forever then. There's a whole society there, whole government. They call themselves the Elysian Council. I love it. There's a bunch of people who be like, well, we were the ones who gave up. We're not going to escape. So I guess we're just going to chill out here. We're going to hang out. A bunch of different types of aliens are here. How often does this ion storm happen? Are there other ways to get into this triangle other than an ion storm? Is this some sort of space hot pocket where there's some sort of fold that you can't really see, but the spaceship flies into it? It's like a rat trap is probably a better analogy. A rat trap, they go into it, and then when they try to leave, they can't escape, and then they're stuck there. But Kirk is like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. There's another issue. Their dilithium crystals are running out. So they have not only the limitation of not knowing how to get out of space, but also the limitation of supply and time. So Kirk has to act very quickly. They do eventually get out, and I felt like I was predicting them getting out. Even though I knew that they were going to get out, in really good media, they would have built the tension up more. In the original Star Trek series, there's an episode that I gave a 9, and I knew that they were going to get out of the situation. But because of the way it was written, the way it was acted, everything, the way everything was done, I think it was the amoeba complex, that episode, very similar to this one in like concept of you have to do this, you have very limited time to execute this thing, or else you won't have any other window to get out of the predicament you're in. In that one, it was death, but in this one, it's just being here forever. I guess there's less stakes, but it's essentially death for Kirk and for everybody else. It's soul death. It's not physical death, but it is soul death for everybody on board. I'm thinking about the episode I just mentioned from the original series. I'm like, man, this could have had some more tension. There wasn't a ton of tension. It was pretty predictable. I feel like toward the back half of the series, or at least the back half of the season, as I've noticed, and I'll comment if this pattern continues, I've noticed that everything's just been animated a little bit less and less and less. Maybe there's more budget restrictions, more time restrictions. This is a decent episode though. I like the black voidness of space and Kirk's determination. I love it too. I appreciate his determination to get everybody out. I would have to give this episode because, honestly, nothing really stuck out to me in this episode. There's a lot of potential, but the execution is kind of I really think the writing is pretty decent in this episode, but the execution with the way it's animated, it's just whatever. I felt like it could have done better in a live action environment. If you did this in the original series, bam! You could have, like, I don't know, acted it up, and I would have felt more entrenched in the tension. I definitely think this is more of an original series episode than something that would be good for animation when it comes to Star Trek, but I get it. This episode definitely does feel like a throwaway script from the original episode. Let me know if you know all the Star Trek facts, if I'm remotely correct. I've not looked any of this up. I'm just going based off vibes and what I've seen. So, I'd have to give this episode, I like the tension, but it wasn't enough attention for me to feel real emotions, and I knew everybody was going to be safe at the end. So, I'd have to give this one. But I do like the conflict between the Klingons and the USS Enterprise people that was happening the entire time. That was fun. So because of that, I'd have to give this episode, it's a solid 6.9 out of 10. Oh no, the USS Minterprise got attacked by a bunch of Klingons. So now the USS Minterprise is being fixed. If you hear any sounds in the background, that's why. So now I'm stuck on this planet, this colony, until the USS Minterprise is fixed. I'm Salad, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 1, Episode 12, The Ambergris Element. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Margaret Arman. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise go to a planet called Argo. It's been transformed into a water planet by a bunch of earthquakes. While they're on the planet, Kirk and Spock get attacked and they turn into water breathers. Crazy episode. And then it's discovered that there's this whole society of water people because they had to evolve that way. I like the appearance of the sea creature. He looks really spooky. Also, I feel like the way that every monster is drawn in this series, they don't look so spooky as they could be. All the art is very underwhelming. There is an idea there. You could make it scarier. You could make it whatever, more of whatever effect you're trying to go for. But I feel like there's potential with the art, but it's not, you know, that good, in my opinion, or at least not that detailed. I like the anatomy. The anatomy is pretty solid and consistent with Star Trek. They have to look for the people who changed them into water breathers, and then they ask them, once they found the people who did it, they ask, hey, why'd you do it? And it seems like this entire underwater civilization has a whole hatred for air breathers to the point where they're pushed out, like exiled from their society and put on the land while they're water breathers. That's terrible. That's cruel. I feel like the way that this art is drawn, the writing itself is brutal. But the way that it's written, you could either adapt it where it's super violent, there's a lot of gore, or there's no gore at all. Like how the Star Trek likes to draw. There's not like any gore, actually. It's just weird, freaky alien monsters, which is what I like about Star Trek, honestly, is they're alien monsters. They're pretty cool. But yeah, there's not any gore, now that I'm thinking about it. Everyone in that underwater society hates Kirk and Spock. And then there's another party that comes down that's like, hey, we gotta help you guys. The people who are currently here. And you know, they go big looking. They big looking and I like it. And then it's fun seeing Kirk handle the situation of suffocating on the beach, which is to suffocate on the beach. But then luckily these people are here to help Kirk and Spock until they can find a solution, until they can talk to the people who did this to them. There's a council of people in their leadership. One of them is sympathetic. Everybody else hates them. But the one sympathetic person is like, hey, I'm sorry. You guys aren't allowed here. You just go away. We don't like you guys, but I understand why you guys are here. You guys are here for exploration. I just want you guys to know that we don't like you guys in the nicest, most friendly way possible. And then Kirk and Spock predictably get switched back and they move on their way. I felt like this is a fun exploration of a society of people, a fun exploration of what people are like underwater, what type of society would grow within these conditions. It was on land people, and then a bunch of sea quakes happen, including in this episode. There's a major sea quake. Sea quake happens, and then everyone's living underwater, or you're dead. And I wonder, how long did it take them to adapt to living underwater? I'm just curious about the society now. I like it when Star Trek introduces a society and then just leaves, because it's like, wait, hold on. I want to learn more about the history of those people that you guys just encountered. What was that? The alien life is about to attack me. I better beam up. So, I like the colors. Very blue. A lot of blue. Heavy monochrome. I feel like a lot of the art shined in the varying of blues. But when it comes to values, I feel like there weren't as many value differences in the blues as there could have been to create a higher contrast. So, this is a fun episode. I gotta give this one. It's a 6.5 out of 10. The USS Enterprise is still out of commission. It's still being worked on. So ignore all the background noises. That's my Minterprise being worked on. I'm Mint and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 1, Episode 14, The Slaver Weapon. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Larry Niven. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise is transporting this very sacred box to this planet. This box is from an ancient civilization, and these boxes can be used to locate the other boxes. So they deliver this box to the civilization in which they're delivering it to, and the civilization's like, hey, how about we go to the other box? Let's look at what the other box is doing. And so they're in transport, and then when they get on the planet, boom, they're immediately attacked by these cat creatures. Like, they got saber-toothed tiger-esque vibes to them, for sure. It's also an icy planet, so I'm guessing it's more of the saber-tooth variety based on saber-toothed tigers coming from a very icy place. There's also this weapon, right? This very powerful weapon that they don't want to get these people in the hands of, this alien species. And guess what? They get into the hands, they get imprisoned. The USS Enterprise, a lot of the officers that go down, they get tied up, all nice and tied up, nice and tight. The only reason they're able to escape is that these idiot doofuses misuse the weapon. The weapon is smart enough to be like, hey, you have to put a bunch of voice commands in order to use this weapon. It's like that powerful of a weapon. And then whenever these people use the voice commands wrong, the weapon tricks these people into having it explode and killing these people off. And then the USS Enterprise is safe and they can go on their merry way. This is pretty predictable, not gonna lie. I always know that they're always gonna get out of their predicament, but I really like these creatures, these cat creatures with like some sort of astronaut suit on. They look really weird and bulky, but they look really cool. I like how they're drawn in this series. I swear they must be interested in cats or something in the behind the scenes of this, because why is there a cat member on the main bridge? And now we're introduced to a cat species. This is one of those cases where these people are captured, the USS Enterprise people are captured, and instead of letting their enemies know, hey, you're handling something that has to be delicately handled, you're not going to be able to use that at all, it's password protected, they just let their enemies use that weapon and destroy it and destroy themselves. And I think that's pretty clever. I think that's pretty fun. I enjoyed it. Honestly, there's not much else to talk about this episode other than it's a very journey heavy episode, and then when you get to the ice planet, then they're stuck there for a while. And I like hearing how they're thinking about getting out of these situations. I feel like this is the type of episode where they're getting out of a tiffy. How do they get out of a tiffy? Well, luck. Personally, because it's so luck-based, I personally am not a huge fan of how they got out of this situation. I just think it's a little bit too easy. But also I do like, it's part of the message of this episode is that, I don't know if there's like a theme, but I do think that the message is that if you have a weapon and you don't know how to use it, don't even try handling it. It might destroy you. I don't think that was the message, but that just is what happened to all these people. They didn't know how to use the weapon and they ended up destroying themselves because the power was in the wrong hands. The good power, a lot of power, was put into the wrong hands. That's what happened here. And so I think I gotta give this episode, it's a solid, it's like a 6.3 out of 10. In this episode of Star Trek, they deal with a holy war, a religious war that spans the galaxy. I'm Mint Salad and I saw Star Trek the Animated Series Season 1, Episode 16, The Jihad. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Stephen Candle. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. This episode starts with following the USS Enterprise as Kirk is assigned to participate in this war. Essentially, there's this one side that wants this ancient artifact and the other side's protecting it. And the other side, who doesn't have the ancient artifact, be like, I want to use this to destroy the world. And essentially, this episode is a lot of Kirk fighting, and also his crew members, or at least not trying to not fight, but they end up fighting these people anyway. He's trying to be civil. He's trying to be like, hey, can we talk about this? And these people be like, no, we hate each other. We're in a holy war, right? And it's galaxy expanding. It's pretty big. Not gonna lie. By the way, this is the final episode of the first season, so of course this goes off with a bang. I don't think I've seen a Star Trek episode yet where they deal with a holy war. I feel like most of this episode is a lot of fighting, and that's fun and all that jazz. But ultimately, it's up to Kirk to stop the fighting. It's up to Kirk to stop the weapon stealing, or at least the attempts to steal the weapon, and it's not easy. He has a very hard time. They keep encountering the same question. Why is it so hard to win when we have all of the winning factors on our side? Well, it turns out somebody was sabotaging from the inside, and they find that guy and they deal with that guy, and then they leave because they find out who is causing most of the tension, because it's not usually everybody feeling the same way. Everybody feels a different way about different things at different times and different intensities. However, people who are likely to start a war, right? The leaders are like really feel a lot of emotion, powerful emotions about it or something, powerful motivations, which this guy was. Then from that influence, they feel less and less motivated until you're like, the people who are not even in the war at all, they're like, who cares? All that fun jazz. But essentially, there's a few core people who feel the most intense about a certain any war of any kind, and you have to pinpoint those people down and deal with them. And that's what Kirk did in this episode. And I like how he showed tact. He also showed quickness because he knew he had to do this mission quickly. And ultimately, that's the end of the episode. I've said everything about this episode. This episode wasn't really remarkable, and I feel like a lot of the colors were pretty bright, pretty saturated. So many colors used, but not really a cohesive color palette, not gonna lie. Colors were all over the place. Values were all right. I feel like it was mostly leaning on the bright side, the values were. I didn't get any feeling emotional resonance from this episode. The idea of a holy war sounds pretty cool and intense. But in actuality, with how this is animated, I'm like, man, it's a little lackluster. I wish there was something more here. So, I've got to give this episode, it's a solid, I don't know, it's like a 5.9. Should you watch this? If you want to complete Star Trek, yes. Otherwise, stay away from it. What would you do if you got sick in space? It was a space sickness, a mysterious illness that there is not really a cure for except for a very specific place, and that place is being raided by pirates. Would you fight the pirates, or would you just die? I'm in Salad, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 1, The Pirates of Orion. It is directed by Hal Sutherland, written by Howard Weinstein. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. While on a pesky mission, Spock gets sick, and it's up to Kirk to go find a cure. He can only locate a specific place for a cure within the place where he's at in space, and it just turns out that this place is being raided by pirates, so Kirk has to go and fight the pirates in order to get the cure. I think it's pretty sadistic what these guys are doing, not the USS Enterprise, but the people who took the cure. I know they did it because they're pirates and they can sell it and have many money, but Kirk's like, I need that. So we get to see a clash of willpower versus greed / financial incentive. We get to see them collide, and it's pretty fun. Season 2 is a nice refresher because I felt like the end of last season was starting to become stale visually. The space looks really cool in this one. There's a lot of orange and purple hues to the space background. I think it's pretty cool. I especially like how the Orion guy, he's green. They're all green. A stark contrast to the blue, red, and yellow color palette that the Star Trek people wear. Also, a lot of the ground, I noticed, had a bluish gray tint, and the sky had like a weird orangish tint to the sky the entire time, which I found to be really fun. The USS Enterprise literally has to chase down this pirate, and Kirk has to come out. He has the whole glowy yellow aura around him that makes it so he can breathe in space. He doesn't need a spacesuit of any kind. And he's just straight up fighting this Orion with the fisticuffs. And I like that about Kirk. He's just so willing to go hands-on. Kirk is willing to just do what it takes by himself in order to get the mission done, which is a sign of a great leader, is when the leader's like, all right, I really want to do these things, right? But there are certain things that I have to delegate that aren't on the top list of priority of things for me to do. There are other things that are more important, like leading the pact, leading where we are going as a ship. But of course, as captain, you have to know literally every nook and cranny of your ship. So Kirk knows anything that you might need to know, plus so much more. You also have to have the drive in order to be a captain, and he definitely has the drive to seek out the Orion because, you know, they stole what he needs, and he's willing to fight for what he needs, and I like that about his character. In the end, Spock gets what he needs, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. This is very much a journey episode. This is an episode where Spock is sick, and we must grab a thing for Spock, but there are obstacles in the way, and Kirk quite literally has to punch his way through in order to get to what he needs and get Spock healthy again. He really cares about his first mate, and I like that a lot. The amount of animation, it feels budgeted, but I do like the overall amount of effort put in the background colors. I feel like the colors are a little bit more cohesive than they were the end of the last season. Oh boy, I felt like the end of the last season, the colors were pretty much all over the place, but this one, it's a little bit more controlled and tight. Have you seen this episode? Let me know in the comments below. I think I gotta give this one, it's a 7 out of 10. What would you do if there was somebody all up in your business? They were causing so many problems and just making life, in general, a hassle. I'm in Sound, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 2, BAM. It is directed by Bill Reed, written by David Gerrold. If you haven't seen this episode, I'll spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise is doing a bunch of exploratory missions, There is this commander who is an ambassador for a planet who's just observing the Federation. I'm guessing he's observing so he can see whether to join the Federation or not, but they are friendly with the Federation. The job is observe, but this man does not simply observe. A crew of people go down to the planet, including this guy, and you know what this guy does? He just interferes. He makes this this planet, there's this planet who's like, oh, I hate you guys, I hate that you're here, you're interfering with all the people here. It's the actual planet doing it, right? They're interfering with what seems to be just primitive people, and I'm like, the Prime Directive? I know it's not the Federation, technically, it's some guy outside of the Federation. He doesn't know the Prime Directive. Kirk the entire time is like, dude, but the Prime Directive, I swear. This episode, the Prime Directive is said a lot. Compared to other episodes, it's insane how many times they say the Prime Directive, but this guy is breaking the Prime Directive. And of course, there's this entity who's looking over these primitive people. They're like, yo, what are you guys doing? Get out of here. Can you, like, not, please? Essentially what's happening. And Kirk's like, bro, I told you so. Can you not interfere? Ugh. And the episode just ends where they're like, well, I guess I won't interfere. And it's presumed that they just go about their day, travel in space some more. Man, this guy is really obnoxious. I don't like the guy who's looking at the Federation. I don't like this guy who's just on the Enterprise interfering with missions whenever he chooses, not being taught of the Prime Directive. I feel like if you are doing any sort of space travel, you should know about the Prime Directive, or else you're just not a properly equipped space traveler. There are many a species that don't know anything about space, don't know anything about modernity or science of any kind, and if you were to shatter the world, they'll just, I don't know how they'll take it. They won't take it with the big brain that there's people who have been able to travel to space, like they can understand everything, but the primitive people can't. It's kind of an issue. So don't be going and interfering, please. Other than that really annoying guy, and it's really fun seeing everybody else's reaction to the guy. He's just a problem just generally overall. It's also just nice seeing that they don't have to deal with him anymore. This is an alright episode. I gotta give this one, it's a 6.7 out of 10. What would you do if suddenly somebody on board was pulling a bunch of practical jokes in the middle of space with a bunch of your enemies attacking you? I'm itsmintsalad and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 3, The Practical Joke. It is directed by Bill Reed, written by Chuck Manville and Len Jansen. If you haven't seen this episode, I'll spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise is being attacked by a bunch of Romulans, and then they pass through this cloud. And while they pass through this cloud, a bunch of practical jokes are being pulled, such as, you know, the classic kick me or I'm stupid, the little post-it note you put on behind people. Also, just random holes in the ground covered by leaves. They first start off harmless, very harmless pranks. And then they get progressively more and more intense until it's like, bro, having a bunch of ice, then covering that with fog, that's not cool. Also, oh, practical joke, you're now in a snowstorm and you're about to die. Whoa, practical joke. It's like, no, that's not cool at all. That's not cool, ship. Oh yeah, it was a ship doing it. Because of the cloud that they went through, the ship can now do practical jokes. Honestly, most of the episode is them discovering, oh, who's doing these practical jokes? Why are there so many practical jokes? And then they discover, oh, it's just ship. Well, how do we make it so the ship can stop doing the practical jokes? Kirk notices the solution. He's like, oh, well, I don't want to go through this thing. And he's like saying it reverse psychology because he's already figured out, okay, so the ship's going to do practical jokes. I have to make it so it seems like it's a joke on me to do the thing that I want to do, so I have to frame it in such that it looks like I don't want to do this. And so he does that, and the ship's like, haha, you don't want to go there, don't you? Haha. And the ship's also like, let me inflate a balloon that's really big and have it so the Romulans attack that. And I'm like, wait, you have just latex? Where'd you get the latex from to make a big balloon like that? I'm not going to think about it too hard, but it definitely opens a lot of questions that I want answered, and this episode doesn't answer them. The Romulans get mad, and they do be chasing the Enterprise, and Kirk successfully tricks the Enterprise into going through that cloud, and the Enterprise is like, well, I guess no more practical jokes because I pranked myself, and the Romulans now have to deal with practical jokes themselves, so they have to pass through the cloud in order to get rid of the practical jokes. This is definitely more of a silly episode. It seems nobody really got harmed, just a lot of practical jokes, lots of laughing, and my favorite part, seeing Spock be like, oh, well, these are practical jokes. And his response is just so emotionless, it's great. His sense of humor is so dry sometimes. I think my favorite part has to be when they finally realize it's the ship's computer. I'm like, frickin', it's the ship, man. It's the ship. The ship sometimes can just be weird, scrambled, right? And immediately it will have some sort of personality or defect, and it's always a fun episode whenever that happens. This episode mostly takes place on the USS Enterprise, so we got the Great Walls with the blue, yellow, and red, and ultimately, this is a fun, alright, wacky episode. I've got to give it, it's a 6.8 out of 10. What? Dr. McCoy is being prosecuted for mass murder? I'm Mint Salad, and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 4, Albatross. It is directed by Bill Reed, written by Dario Finelli. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise visits a planet, and this planet immediately arrests McCoy because they're like, hey, we saw you 19 years ago, and after you left and did all of the healing and such, and then you left, everybody died of a plague, and we're going to charge you with the murders. And I'm like, hold on, isn't the statute of limitations up? Like, what's the statute of limitation on murder? Also, no, he's not a murderer. Wait, why do you think that it was specifically Bones that did the murders, just because of some correlation causation? What? You're making stuff up. So of course Kirk has to go to the second version of that planet. There's two versions of this planet, and he finds somebody who is there, who could vouch for McCoy's character, who was there 19 years earlier, which seems to be very convenient. But that's just because they're like, oh, hey, we found this guy. Let's go over there. Okay, cool. And then they go over there, and then they have to rush back, and that person vouches for Kirk. But on the way, this person's, like, getting sick. It's like, okay, so it's clearly something's wrong. There must be some sort of lack of something that makes it so you guys are dying off and having some sort of plague, like it's like a vitamin C deficiency or something. It's definitely not linked to McCoy. He's having the same issue now. But McCoy's on a different planet, so it's definitely not McCoy doing the murders. It's some sort of deficiency of a spatial aura or something. I don't know. I was listening to this episode explain what's happening. I was like, what does that mean? What is a spatial aura? Like, the aura around you? Is it an energy field or something? How do you lose an energy field? But they figure out how to take care of this disease, and everyone's like, well, Bones, you didn't do the murder. Sorry that we blamed a natural phenomenon on a person's intention to cause a murder? What? I still can't believe, why did they just think, okay, well, I guess it's time for us to accuse a man of murder because some sort of disease. It's like, that's never man's problem. Unless they give you a blanket and it's covered in that disease, then that's probably their problem that they're giving to you. But overall, I just find that their thinking is kind of flawed, kind of very flawed. It goes to show the different types of planets that exist. They have different belief systems, everything's made up, and so everybody's making something up. And so obviously it's going to be different what each made up thing is because it's all made up. But you still have like the core principles of life that's shared throughout all made up things, humans and aliens alike. This is an alright episode. It wasn't too significant to me though. I just felt like it was kind of an interesting excuse to lock up McCoy. So I've got to give this one, it's a 6.5 out of 10. What would you do if you arrived on a planet and the person you were talking to demanded that you treated them like a god? I'm in Salad and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 5, How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth. It is directed by Bill Reed, written by Russell Bates and David Wise. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise follows a signal, just a random signal that they find in space, and they come across a planet. It's a really cool designed planet, and it's also a really cool designed god guy that they find. It's based off a few ancient Earth civilizations like the Aztecs, the Mayans, also the Tectons, whatever that city is called in Mexico that happened before Spain came in and just freaking obliterated the place. All of these designs incorporated into this god design. By the way, this guy's like, you guys have to worship me. And Kirk's like, no, dude, we don't need to do that. And this guy's like, but I've been building ways for the human race to worship me, trying to find ways to summon me, but none of them could ever find a way to summon me. They always got close, or they had different pieces, but they never came together and tried to summon me. And I'm like, why do you need so many convoluted rules to summon you? I can't believe that you have to have so many rules in order to summon a god. Why can't you just go and appear? You're a freaking god. Or at least you want to be, but Kirk's like, nah, dude, I don't want you to be a god. Of course, this guy's like, what? Okay, let me challenge you to a series of puzzles. You have to figure out these puzzles in the city that I got you in, and then they figure out the puzzles, and then the god's like, all right, fine. Okay, I guess you'll be sorry for what you're doing. I can't believe it, but you won't freaking worship me. Just worship me. And Kirk's like, no. And he gets progressively more mad. It gets to a point where he's just like, you guys won't worship me? I guess it's time for me to just destroy your entire ship then. Kirk's like, well, we don't need to get that far, but let me try to explain to you that they were just ancient civilizations. They didn't know what was going on, so they were worshiping anything that they could get. But we, as human beings, don't need that now. And he keeps trying to get it into this freaking guy's head, and it's not until the very end where it's like, fine, I get it, alright? Are you happy now? It's like, alright, I am happy now. This is a fun time. Finally, this guy lets them go, and they don't have to deal with this freaking god anymore. And it's pretty fun. I like the design of the god a lot. His design really sticks out in my brain. It's very angular, very colorful, very much that time period. It's kind of got those like geometric designs of like the Aztecs and the Mayans and such like that. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. I like Kirk's ability to negotiate and to not back down from a god. Of course, he's encountered a lot of different types of beings in the universe, so at this point he just has a bunch of practice, and he treats everybody pretty much the same, including people who demand that he worships them. Overall, this is a pretty fun episode. I enjoyed the humor in this. Oh boy, the god is like a petulant little child, but at least at some point he can be reasoned with, so that's nice. I like the colors in this one. There's a decent amount of colors, not a ton of colors, but very selective amount of colors. And I just thought overall that the setting was pretty nice and alright. So I've got to give this one, it's a 6.6 out of 10. What would you do if you were suddenly de-aging? You were getting younger. I'm itsmintsalad and I saw Star Trek The Animated Series Season 2, Episode 6, The Counterclock Incident. It is directed by Bill Reed, written by John Culver. If you haven't seen this episode, I will spoil it for you. The USS Enterprise is currently hosting a bunch of people above Kirk's rank, including this lovely elderly couple. It looks like they've just been doing a bunch of space things their entire life as a couple, and it looks pretty nice. And then they discover a ship that's going really fast, just going into a supernova. Why did Kirk do this? Why did he decide to get a tractor beam and be like, hey, let's go beam that person? Let's make sure he doesn't die in the supernova. It looks very intentional, like that person wants to die. He's going really fast. Just let the man commit suicide, okay? It's his choice. Let him do it. But no, Kirk has to help him. And because of this, he gets stuck in the tractor beam. And because of this, they get dragged in with the gravitational force of the supernova. It has its own gravitational pull, and that ship is pulling the Enterprise, and that ship is being pulled by the supernova, and so there's just a whole lot of pulling going on. And by the way, some time dilation is happening. I don't know how this works physics-wise or time travel-wise. I'm not a time expert, but everybody starts getting younger until everybody's like a child again. But we got the really old people. They're now like young, relatively. They're like in their 30s instead of their 50s or whatever. It's just fun seeing everybody de-age and everybody's just being a youngin'. And what's interesting is all of their clothes fit. Like their clothes shrink as they also shrink, instead of like how it would normally work. You got adult clothes that would just get bigger on the body of the youngins until it doesn't fit at all completely, and then they have to get like a new outfit. But they just the outfits shrink. The outfits shrink with the characters. I like how ultimately it's up to the two adults on board to stop this de-aging process. Just let the freaking thing go. Why did you have to get that ship in the first place? They have to get home. And I like how eventually they figure out, the transporter has a copy of all of our atoms, but at the correct configuration. So if we all went through the transporter, it would just be regular age again. And that's what happens. And everybody becomes regular age again, and it's a really fun time. On one hand, I like this episode because it's pretty memorable. I like everybody getting really small. It's kind of like a Benjamin Button situation. It's really fun. But on the other hand, there are some questions like, wait, how is this possible? Why is this happening? I understand why it's happening, but why is it happening? Shouldn't another a thing happen instead of what is currently happening? Imagine if Kirk went through this issue but didn't have the adults on board. What would he do? I guess he would just shrink to infinity, or shrink until he's a fetus or something, or a zygote. I think that's the thing before fetus. This is a fun end of the series. Oh boy, what do I think about Star Trek The Animated Series? I just think that it's a bunch of leftover scripts from the original series, and the original series season 3 kind of just felt like they're just going through the ringer, and they didn't have much to ring, and then the series, they're ringing some more. There's some solid episodes in the first season, and then it kind of goes downhill after the first few episodes. And then this one is like, oh hey, we're gonna start strong, and it ends strong, but the middle part is just kind of, it's whatever, I guess. ultimately, I'm not a huge fan of the animated series, especially since the animation's not very active. It's there, but it's not like bombastic, you know. It's not like an anime. But it definitely is very budget, you can tell for sure. Ultimately, it's an alright series. If you want to watch Star Trek, if you want to complete all the Star Treks, definitely check out the animated series. But if you just want a Star Trek to jump into, don't jump into the Star Trek the animated series first. Watch another Star Trek. Preferably the original series. So I've got to give this episode, it's a 6.5 out of 10. If you like this review, watch another on the platform you like at $20 dinos, patreon.com/ASEPresents for 1 movie review per 1 month. Also, go to autisticbooze.com, support the daily grandness of all them daily movies, and go here. And until next time, mint salad saw. I'll see you later, my sauerkraut and bacon bits. Beam me up.